Hey, this past Sunday, we talked about having bold faith to imagine what God wants to do in your life. We looked at the life of Joshua, and we had a memory verse. The memory verse was in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9. It says this, and I'm going to use some hand motions, so watch what I do. The verse says, Paul writes, he says, "No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those people who love him." So it's going to come across the bottom of the screen. If you'll say this along, and if you have a little bit of courage, just do the hand motion. So here we go. No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those who love him. Hey, one of the greatest gifts that God has given us is our imagination. It's the ability to see things with our mind and to think and to create mental pictures in your mind. Probably one of the smartest people that's ever lived, Albert Einstein, said this about imagination. He said, "Imagination is more important than knowledge. Logic will get you from point A to B, but imagination will take you everywhere." He said, "There's no limit to imagination. The true sign of intelligence is not knowledge." He said, "It's imagination." So here's my goal. My goal is to stretch your imagination, because that's what God wants to do. God wants you to imagine how he could use you to make a difference in somebody else's life and make a difference in the world. I want to say three things about imagination. Number one, imagination is essential to live your life by faith. In Hebrews chapter 11, it's God's hall of fame of faith. You know, we have, in America, we have all kinds of halls of fame. We have the baseball hall of fame. We have the rock and roll hall of fame. In Oklahoma City, they have the cowboy hall of fame. But God has the hall of fame, and it's called Hebrews chapter 11. And in it, we have Abraham and Moses and Joseph and Gideon, these great heroes in the Bible, heroes of the faith, hall of fame. And God starts Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1 by saying this. He says, "What is faith?" And he defines it. He says, "It is the confident assurance that what we hope for is actually going to happen. It is the evidence of things we cannot see." So here's what I want you to see. That faith is a different way of seeing. That God has given us a couple ways of seeing. The first way he gives us is through our physical eyes. But the second way that God has given us to see is by the imagination in your mind. You picture things in your mind, you dream, you visualize them. See, that's another way that God has given us of seeing. And when you can't see something physically with your eyes, you have imagination to see it in your mind. When you read Hebrews chapter 11, one of the things you quickly realize in the heroes of the faith, the hall of fame, is you realize that every one of those heroes of the faith, they were heroes because they used their imagination. For instance, God says to Abraham, this just cracks me up. Abraham, God says, "You're 90 years old and you have no kids, but I'm going to change your name from Abram to Abraham." And Abraham literally means father of a great nation. Come on, when you think about this is crazy. He's 90 years old, he has no kids, and God changes his name to Abraham, father of a great nation. For about a decade after that, Abraham still has no kids. So I can see him walking into a local restaurant, and he says, "Yes, I like a table for two." And the maitre d' goes, "Well, what name would that be under?" And Abraham, father of a great nation. Well, how many kids do you have? Well, none. See, it'd be pretty embarrassing to be named Abraham, father of a great nation, when you don't have any kids. But see, that's how God works. God is able to call things sometimes, not the way they look on the outside, but God calls things in advance of what it looks like. And then God says to Abraham, he says, "Abraham, I want you to go outside at night, and I want you to look up at the sky, and I want you to see all the stars." And he says that is how many grandchildren and great-grandchildren and extended family, that's your family tree. That's how many kids you're going to have. That is going to be the nation of Israel. Count all the stars, and that's how many kids you're going to have. Do you know what God is doing when he tells Abraham to go count the stars? He's activating Abraham's imagination. God is saying, I want you to visualize. I want you to imagine what I am going to do in your life. So imagination, number one, the first thing I want to say about imagination is essential for you and I to live by faith. Here's the second thing I want to say about imagination, and that is doubt is an enemy of imagination. Doubt and fear neutralize what God wants to do in your life. It takes courage to imagine. Do you know why most people don't imagine? It's because they are fearful of failure. When you were a kid, you had all kinds of imagination. Children have massive amounts of imagination. But as you get older, the older you get, the more your imagination kind of gets a little rusty sometimes. And you stop imagining what things could be, and you start living the way things are. And you get stuck in the status quo. You know what status quo means? Status quo means the mess that we're in. You don't imagine what could be. You just think about what is. Doubt is the enemy of imagination. That's why it takes courage to imagine. By the way, you know what courage is? Courage is doing the thing you fear the most. If you're not afraid, you don't need any courage. Courage only happens when you are scared to death. Courage is when you're scared to death and you say, you know what? I'm going to do it anyway. In the history of our church this is the 40th year of Oro Valley Church of the Nazarene. And it started with a group of people to just imagine, what do you think God could do here on Calle Concordia? And if we built a church, what would happen? And were they scared to death? Absolutely they were scared to death. But they moved ahead in the face of their fear, and God showed up. I remember in 2005 when we built this sanctuary. Oh man, you talk about being scared to death. We didn't even know if we could pay the mortgage. And at that time, when we were building this building, it would have been impossible for us to pay the mortgage. But we were confident of one thing. We were confident that God was calling us to build this building. And I'm confident of this, that God will show up in your life. Courage is when you do the thing, even when you're afraid, you do the right thing. You say, should I wait until the fear is gone? No, you don't wait until the fear is gone. Just do it, even though you're afraid. And that's when God is able to grow and stretch your faith. Doubt is the enemy of imagination. You have to move against your fear. You just say, I'm going to do it anyways. Even though I have tremendous fear, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do it even though I'm scared to death. Do you know what you need to do? You need to doubt your doubts, and you need to believe your beliefs. See, we get that mixed up, and we believe our doubts, and we doubt our beliefs. Doubts are meant to be doubted. Beliefs are meant to be believed. That's simple, but that's it. So you believe your beliefs, doubt your doubts. Doubt will destroy you. There's this great story in the Bible about a father, who had a son that was incredibly sick, and he came to Jesus. Mark chapter 9, if you want to read it later. But here's what it says. The man said to Jesus, please heal my son if you can. Jesus replies, what do you mean if I can? Anything is possible if a person believes, if a person has faith. And here's this great response by this father. The father replied, I do believe, but Lord, help me not to doubt. I love that. It's so honest. Here's this guy. I believe Jesus. I know you can do this, but I just have some fear. I have some doubts. Have you ever cried out to God like that? Have you ever cried out and said, Lord, I want to believe, but I got some fear. I have some doubts. One of the things that happens because of doubt, because of worry, because of fear in our life, it causes that vision, that dream that God has given us, it causes that dream to dissipate, to leak out. You get a dream and it's red hot, and that dream begins to leak, and some people, start off with such a great dream and a great goal and a great vision, great cause, and that God has given them to live for their life. But over time, that vision begins to leak out because of fear and worry and discouragement. All right, so here's the third thing about a dream and imagining. Number 3, if a dream is from God, it will be connected somehow to His church and His plan for the world. You weren't meant to live your life for yourself. In fact, Jesus says it like this: if you try to keep your life for yourself, you'll lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake and for the sake of the good news, that's the Great Commission for the good news, then you will find true life. See, this is what God wants to do in your life. Let me give you 3 questions to get started. 3 simple questions. Question number 1, on getting on the journey for God's dream for your life. And if you're sitting here today and you're going, I've missed it. No. God has you right here, and He wants you to start right now to get on that dream, that vision that He has. God is exactly where He wants you right now. Here are 3 questions that kind of line your life up for God's dream for you. So here it is, 3 questions. Number 1, what if? Question 2, why not? And question number 3, why not me? What if? Why not? Why not is what do you see in the world that needs to be done? What in the world do you see that's not done very well, or you could do it better, and you see a problem in the world, and maybe you can make a difference. And then the third question is, why not me? I hear people asking sometimes, they say, why do we have all these problems in the world like poverty and disease and illiteracy and corruption? I'll tell you why we have problems like this. It's because God is waiting for his children, that's you and that's me, to imagine the solution to the problem. God's waiting for his children to imagine the solutions to the problems of the world. And maybe God wants to use you in a way that you've never ever thought of before, to use you in a significant way to make a difference in the world. Remember the verse on the very first day of the 50-day adventure, we said, with God, all things are possible. So here's what you do. You pray. You ask God for direction. Say, God, I'm not looking at what I can do. I'm going to look at what you can do through me. I'm going to let the size of my God determine the size of my goal. And I'm going to move against my fears. I'm going to move against my doubts, because all things are possible with God. God is looking for people that are tired of small dreams and self-centered thinking. I told you I was going to push you in these 50 days. Here, I'm pushing you right now. God is looking for people that will step up, move out, and go. And I want to tell you about me. I am all in. And that scares me spitless to say that. But I am all in. I don't even know all that means. But I'm going to be part of God's plan and God's goal, God's dream that he's given me for my life. God will use you if you open up your life and say yes to him. He'll tap into your imagination, and he will show you the dream that he has for you. Great lives are built on great dreams. No eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those people who love him. Here's small group leaders. Here's what I want you to pray in your group. God, open up our eyes and let us see what you want to do through our lives. Small group leaders, I'm handing it off to you.